Hi, Brendan. Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining me today and taking the time to speak to me. So we're going to be speaking a bit about your sustainability reporting standard and your forthcoming report, which I think ties really nicely into our Sustainable Homes Conference, which I know you're both going to be speaking at, which is taking place online on the 16th of May. And that conference is really going to cover kind of all of the pressing issues that are facing housing professionals in the sustainability arena. So things from procurement to energy efficiency and quality, but also kind of right through to the resident engagement side of things, green skills and sustainable finance. So just to start, I guess I'd just like to ask you both to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about the sustainability reporting standard, who Sustainability for Housing are, and kind of more broadly, why the standard and why ESG are so important for the social housing sector.
Well, I won't remember all of that, Natalie. That's such a long question. But I'm Brendan Sarsfield, and I'm the chair of Sustainability for Housing. Sustainability for Housing was set up to promote and develop ESG reporting in social housing. It's really important, and if you look at the finance world and you see how the finance world is changing and how much of the finance cake is increasingly being devoted to ESG style investments, and social housing has been designed. Social housing is a sector which should attract ESG funding, but it can be a minefield, and reporting and having a standard for reporting help guide people through that. And we've been going for just over 2 years, and we'll be issuing a report shortly about the second year reporting. And we will, and we're also developing a new version of the standard because things are evolving in the outside world and within social housing itself. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot to share, and a lot of lessons that we've learned along the way. And I look forward to meeting people online on the day.
Great. And I'm Andy Smith. I am Head of Housing Impact Services at the Good Economy. So we are the Secretariat for Sustainability for Housing. So that means we're involved in a lot of the day-to-day work of signing people up to be adopters, to refining the criteria, thinking about what should be in the standard, and we're also deep in the midst of writing up our findings in the report that Brendan mentioned. So we, the Good Economy, we've been around for a few years now, but we helped set up the original version of the sustainability reporting standard. We chaired the working group that was made up of housing associations as well as lenders and investors who wanted to kind of come together to try and come up with this sort of a way of reporting ESG performance that was comparable, that was repeatable, and that was really transparent. I think that was really important for the sector. So hopefully what we've ended up with is this standard that is from the sector and for the sector. And so, yeah, that's what we want to sort of tell everyone about, how it's going, basically. That's the result of this kind of 2 years in. We've had a couple of rounds of reporting now. And so what are we learning? How is it evolving? I want to kind of share some of that back with the wider sector.
Thanks,
I just wanted to add, though, Natalie, sorry for interrupting, was that, the board that is driving this and that we work with, is a really great board. And we've got representatives from housing associations in England and Scotland on the board. We've got representatives from the banks. We've got representatives from other industries. And we also have a housing association tenant on the board. So we look for quite wide influence, but this has got it's really important that we stand next to the sector in developing ESG reporting in the sector rather than get too far ahead of it.
Yeah, of course. That's a really helpful overview from you both. Thank you. And I think, just really highlights why this is so important for the sector and how it can kind of help on the sector's path towards decarbonisation. So, Brendan, I think you touched on it in your first answer slightly, but what will you both be talking about at our Sustainable Homes Conference?
Yeah, I think what we'll be trying to do is one, look backwards at what has been happening in ESG reporting. So we've got an annual report coming out shortly, and we'll give some hints on what's in that and how reporting trends are changing. But we'll also look forward, because we've got a new version of the standard coming out, and we're out for consultation with the sector now on a draft version, and want to share our thinking on that. So, it is really interesting seeing the journey that housing associations in particular are on with ESG funding. Outside of that, I think it's also interesting to see how the finance world is changing, and hopefully we'll touch on that. The Investment Association has issued its own guidance on the data that it wants from borrowers or people it's going to invest in. And actually that's quite comprehensive and quite long, and quite a lot of work involved in meeting their needs. So there's a few trends within the sector and without the sector, which I think will influence the journey that people go on their journey towards net zero.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think in terms of the report itself, really what we have been doing is trying to listen. So we carried out a survey of all adopters. We've been listening to adopters. We've been asking them how have they been using the standard? How are they finding the process of reporting against the standard? Also, we have been interviewing key housing associations, key lenders and investors. So really carried out these kind of deep dive interviews just to understand a bit more about what they want from it and their feedback. We've also been reviewing reports themselves. So we've had reviewed and analysed sort of well over 60 reports now for this cycle. So we want to basically feedback on what are we learning from this? What are the overarching trends? And how is the sector doing at reporting in some of these big ESG issues?
Thanks, that's really useful. And I mean, I know I'll be looking forward to hearing a bit more about the report at the conference, but I was wondering what you're both kind of most looking forward to at our Sustainable Homes conference. And I guess, why do you think that other people should attend?
I think for me, sorry, I'm just going to jump in there first, actually, Brendan. I think for me, I always find conferences like this a really great opportunity just to sense check what's on everyone's minds. I think for me, it's really interesting hearing the questions that people raise, and actually just understand that actually so many of these issues faced by the sector are faced across the sector, from big to small. As it happens, I'm a member of, I sit on the board of a housing association, and it's quite a small association, but the issues we face are exactly the same as some of the issues that are faced by massive organisations. So I think it's really useful to just hear from this huge range of experience at these kinds of conferences.
And I think I'm looking forward to two things in particular. The first is that the pressure on landlords, social landlords at the moment, is huge. The damp and mold, the cost of living crisis, fire safety, just stock condition generally. The pressure's building and building. Attacks from government. I think it's really a difficult time for the sector. And then we're all asking them to think about net zero, which, if you could put your hands over your eyes and your ears and ignore it. But actually, I think the impact of net zero is going to just dwarf, it's going to make those other things look very, very small. And I think it's really important the sector gets ahead of the game here. And I'm looking forward to hearing about that. The second thing is that actually, as well as having all these other things that get in the way and are much more short term, is the problem of just getting to actually actioning net zero is a real journey that landlords have to go on themselves. And we're seeing that in ESG reporting. When people start to do ESG reporting, it's not easy, because they suddenly realize they don't have the data. They don't have the things in the right place. And I think people are following a similar journey in asset management to try and get to net zero, get on site and retrofitting homes and implementing action. And I think what people are realizing is that actually the journey for net zero and the journey for ESG are both needs structural and cultural change. And I'm really looking forward to hearing where people are on that journey. Having sustainable action isn't a switch. It is actually a lot of hard work to get on site and implementing a program to get us to 2050 and net zero.
Thanks both. Those were really good answers. And I think, yeah, the conference will hopefully do a good job at kind of answering all of that and showing kind of where the sector's at. So yeah, Brendan and Andy, thank you so much for taking the time to join me in this conversation. And we really look forward to seeing you back virtually on the 16th of May for our Sustainable Homes Conference.